Hello, hello, everyone in the chat.
Hello.
I
Hello.
love the big waves. We're here for another week. Sam is going to introduce to us because he's so kindly organized this whole thing. So, what have we got on today?
For 1 second.
I've
Unmuted
put him
my
up
stream.
on a bad time.
He forgot. He forgot.
I forgot to mute the stream. Yeah, hi everyone. So tonight we're going to hear some wise words from Stefan, who a friend of mine who I've worked for, and Mike actually as well, who couldn't make it tonight, has worked with him on a couple of occasions. But yeah, he's an amazing orchestrator who I met when I started assisting a composer called Maurizio Malanini. And they have been friends and collaborators for a long time. And, you know, and Jehan has got more and more exciting projects through his time working with Maurizio, and is just such a great composer, orchestrator now and composer, as we'll hear. But yeah, we just thought it'd be really good to hear something about his experiences, and yeah, talking about specifically orchestration in today's film music industry. Yeah, so I met up, as you do now, on Zoom about a month ago, and we had a very long chat for like an hour and a half. As musicians do, it sort of stretches out. So yeah, I've had a bit of a nightmare editing these down into sort of fairly manageable chunks. So you'll have to excuse these videos being quite long. But he's got a lot to say and a lot of useful information for you. So shall we start? Let's start with the first one, Shane, which, if I remember rightly, is about scores. And I just asked him, I mean, we wanted to know what scores sort of budding orchestrators and composers should be studying.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. I will play that for everyone now, and then we'll have a little chat about it afterwards. Okay, so enjoy.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. And so to answer your first question, I would say first, study the scores you love. When I started music, I was in love with film music, mainly like John Williams and James Horner. And so I bought the piano reduction that are the commercial one, that full of mistakes and full of lots of bad, lots of cuts, lots of edits. But it was a good start for me when I was 12, 11 years old to just play them on the piano. But then, as a grown-up now, I would say the scores you need to study in the classical world would be scores from the Russian school, scores from the French school, and scores from the German and American school. So I would be very precise. For the French school, I would focus on Debussy and Ravel, and even Paul Dukas. Voilà. So La Péri, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and his opera Ariane and Barbe. And so I would say for the French school, I was focused on this. And then if you want to go deeper, you could focus on the harmonies of Olivier Messiaen. He released a book in 1944 called Technique de mon langage musical, Technique of my musical language. So you have like his modes used, but there's also his analysis and his perception of the French school in terms of harmony for Debussy and Ravel and all these guys, and the Russian school as well. So for the Russian school, I would focus on Scriabin and also the Mighty Five, so and Tchaikovsky and Prokofiev, and why not Shostakovich? I know Shostakovich. There's always this bridge between John Williams and Shostakovich and Prokofiev, but I would say that the safe orchestrations are made by mostly Rimsky-Korsakov and also Scriabin, who was a student of Rimsky-Korsakov. So in terms of school, I said the French and the Russian, but as I'm speaking, there's also the Italian school with Respighi, who was really a genius. And I remember there was a post, a question on, I think it was Conrad Pope Facebook page, or Orchestration Online by Thomas Goss. But the post was, if I want to study film music, what I should do, or what. And the main answer from everyone, even from Hans Zimmer, who was replying, was study ballet music. And it's true, ballet music and symphonic poem music, let's say from Berlioz, Richard Strauss, and Liszt, is a great start, because it's really music thought to accompany a story. A German school, so I said it, so Richard Strauss for the symphonic poems. And Richard Strauss is really the roots of this Korngold way of thinking, this John Williams way of thinking. Also Schoenberg, even if he was doing hardcore stuff, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, he was doing very beautiful things in the style of the late Romantic style. So I would say study the Gouraud leader, and study as well Verklärte the Transfigurate Night. I don't know if you say this in English, but it's cool. And for the American school, I would say study minimalist music from the 70s, 80s, 90s. So John Adams, Short Ride in a Fast Machine, 1986. I would study also Steve Reich, and things like this, the Terry Riley and Philip Glass and all these guys. But I think there's something very interesting with John Adams, because he seems, I don't know him, but he seems to be very close to the way John Williams is thinking. Because if you listen to the late John Williams scores, let's say Artificial Intelligence or Minority Report, or this scores, there is this kind of minimalist vibe into it. And the way the woodwinds are written in Short Rides in the Fast Machine, all these flourishes in the woodwinds and with the glockenspiel things, is very interesting, because you have a feeling to hear John Williams, but also John Adams, and vice versa. So I don't know who influenced who, but there is definitely this. And I would study also Takemitsu. Takemitsu is a great composer. And he's a composer who was like a chameleon, because he in terms of orchestration, he had this rejection of his roots, his Japanese roots. So he was mainly more into European thinking. So he was really into Messiaen chords, even hardcore stuff by Penderecki, but also Stockhausen and all these guys, and John Cage. And so he was really looking for himself. He was finding a way for him. But at the end of his life, he had this beautiful style, and it's like a summary of all his roots, Japanese roots, and also the American music he loved, and also the French music he loved, and the Russian music. So at the end of his life, there's a piece called From Me Flows What You Call Time. So it's a piece from 1990. And this piece is it's a masterpiece of orchestration. And I think it's a good way, if you want to start by one piece composed by Takemitsu, I will start with this one. And then I will go reverse back in time. In 1957, you wrote a Requiem for strings, which is really interesting. Voilà, it's a lot of scores, but in a way, Hollywood film music is mainly based on these guys. For historical reason, most of them were Jewish, and they flew the Third Reich. So they went either in New York or in Hollywood, and so they imported their brain and their culture there. And the second reason is also that Nadia Boulanger was a great teacher. and she transmitted orally all the knowledge of the French music and the Russian culture to a lot of American people. So as you probably know, Quincy Jones was a student, Leonard Bernstein was a student, Aaron Copland was a student, even orchestrators of James Horner, Thomas Pasatieri was a student of Nadia Boulanger. So a lot of people, like thousands of students, had this French knowledge of great harmony, great orchestration, and great way to arrange and analyze music. And all this knowledge went to Hollywood and New York in the, let's say, 30s, 20s, and then voilà, the rest is history.
All right. Lots of scores to be studying there.
Wow.
So that's edited down for about 20 minutes.
Guys, I was taking notes as if this was like a lecture back in college. Like
he knows his stuff.
He knows so much.
Yeah. And actually one thing, so just because of things getting dotted around when we were chatting, he did also mention the English school, which I must raise. To study the Vaughan Williamses and the Holsts and things like that.
Britain too.
Elgar.
Yeah,
Walton.
all of them. Yeah. Walton. Yeah. He named all those names. But yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, one thing I don't know if it made it. Sorry, I must say I'm so sorry for the brutal editing, Jean. If you have managed to join us tonight, I'm so sorry. I'm not a film editor, but I mean, we said at the time this was a lot of pearls of wisdom to cut down. But I'm not sure if it made a later excerpt that we've got. But one thing that he said that was really interesting is that when he's talking about schools of orchestration, is to think of it in sort of the shoes that you need to fill as an orchestrator, and the existence that those orchestrators have, because they orchestrate, or composers rather, orchestrate in very different ways, and there's definite similarities in those schools. The most obvious one being geographical, like, and it's we talk about that a bit in the full interview, which we're going to upload in the next couple of days, right? Hour and a half's worth, because there's a lot that I've had to cut out here. Yeah, guys, it's a lot of scores.
I was surprised he didn't. He mentioned ballet, but he didn't mention my boy Igor.
He does.
Yeah,
later
I was
on,
thinking the same.
He does
Oddly
later
enough.
on. Yeah, he says definitely to look at Petrushka, Rite of Spring, all of that. Yeah, sorry, it was all kind of.
No, don't worry.
I put him on the spot straight away, you see, and his library is extensive, and he was busy trying to remember everything. So I thought he did a pretty grand job considering. Yeah,
I have to say, I was really happily surprised. I was really happy to hear him mentioning John Adams, because to me, John Adams was like the thing that I discovered in college, and that probably influenced me personally the most. I remember having during actually one of the orchestration for film course, one lecture where we talked about minimalist music and all the American school, and John Adams' music is really, really beautiful, and there's lots to learn and to take away from that. And
well, one score I'd add, because he mentioned Short Ride and a Fast Machine, I would actually add Harmony Lehrer to that.
Harmony Lehrer, my God, yes.
That's incredible. And
Absolutely.
if anyone who's seen The Matrix will hear Harmony Lehrer in that.
Yeah. You also hear some Short Ride as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but just to add to what Jean was saying, definitely those two scores can be heard. And I know what he means about there's a sensibility connection with him and John Williams as well. There's definitely a way of orchestrating that translates.
And he mentioned specifically the woodwinds, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
You can definitely hear the connection there. I think it's like super.
I find it tricky to know when you're studying a score, like how to separate in your brain, like, oh, I'm studying this score for the orchestration, or I'm studying this score for the composition. It's like,
well, I
often they're
guess
so intertwined.
Well, my question
They
is,
are, they
should they be separated? Because in my mind, composition is orchestration in the same way. It's not just composition is not just the notes. It is the instruments that you choose, because you put a melody on a completely different instrumentation. It's fundamentally a different piece. So I don't think there's really a need to separate them.
And I think John would certainly has said, you know, copying them out by hand, you're going to absorb all of it. You know, that's what he was doing, is like taking a Rite of Spring and penciling everything down. And as you do that, you learn every part of it. You learn how to orchestrate and how it's composed. One thing that you mentioned at the start is you know, once you've absorbed all of that list of beautifully orchestrated pieces of music, looking at the film music you love as well, I don't know if it appears later, but he mentions Hal Leonard scores, John Williams. If you're a John Williams fan, you have to get Hal Leonard scores, because they're just so easy to study, and so it's so clear. You know, I think we've said it before in the stream as well, that they're just very good tools. In the interest of time, guys, because I know what's still to come, shall we go on to the next one?
Let's power through.
The next one, should we do the mentorship one, Shane? So we just asked, so Jean's been very fortunate to be mentored by more than two, but specifically two very, very good world-class orchestrators in Conrad Pope and Jehan Majan. And so we just wanted to learn a little bit about his experiences with them and what he's learned from them.
Great.
It's a great question, and I think I met John Williams, and when I met him, I was really impressed, but I learned nothing from him. And because why? I studied his music for 25 years. And for Jehan Majan and Conrad Pope, I studied their music for decades. I was very lucky to have access to their scores because I knew the copyist and I knew some people. And so before I met them, I knew them. And when I was a kid, I was sorting my VHS cassette and my disc by composers. So I was like all my John Williams scores, all my James Horner scores, and Silvestri, Elfman, and whatever, and Thomas Newman. And when I did this sorting, I said, I can go deeper. And I was trying to think, who orchestrated that? Jehan Majan. Conrad Pope. Who is this guy? And I don't know. There's lots of great orchestrators as well. Arthur Morton and Alexander Courage. And so I tried to look for their interviews. And in France, we were very lucky. There was like a team of people who did some interviews of lots of people, like Danny True. They interviewed Danny True, who did Alan Menken orchestration in the 90s. And it was a magazine called, it was a Belgian magazine and also a French magazine. There was one called Soundtrack, and we were doing lots of interviews of people. There was another magazine in France called Cinephonia, which was called Dreams Magazine before, mainly focusing on James Horner. But in this interview, I could read the interviews of Conrad Pope or Jehan Majan. And in this interview, they were saying they loved ballet music. They loved, what's the name? Korngold or Shostakovich. So I said, oh, wow, I should study that. I should study that. So I knew who they were. I knew their work. I even did some transcription of their work. I remember for Jehan Majan, I was a huge fan of the very not well famous Disney movie called Atlantis. I don't know, I like this movie. I like the humor in it, and I like the orchestration. And I loved what Jehan Majan did for a scene where there is this submarine, it's called the submarine, the Q. And it's the Q before they're going to travel and do their journey. And I just put in loops the first few bars. I think I will send you the link of this cue that I really liked, and said, "Oh my God, he's a genius, Jeff Medjen." And for Conrad Pope, I mean, well, he's a genius as well. And well, so this was my feeling before I met them. For them, they were my God. But then I met them, and I met them really by hazard. The first time I met Jeff Medjen, it was thanks to a friend of mine called Maurizio Malanini. And Maurizio had a great gig with a great project with the BBC Philharmonic, and Jeff Medjen was conducting. And I was, "Wow, I'm happy, great." I will meet my hero. So I was really happy that Maurizio asked Jeff to have Jeff conducting. So this is how I met Jeff, and I think maybe you should ask him, but I think from my point of view, we immediately hooked intellectually and musically. And in Hollywood, I think Jeff is one of the most genuine, honest, and true musician that you can find in Hollywood. It's a rare person in LA to have people like this, and LA and London, because he has both cultures. He lives in both ways, and so is Conrad Pope. Conrad Pope, genius, very generous person, very clever person, very smart, as Jeff. And for Conrad, I met him. I think the first time I met him, it was at Air Studio for Alexandre Desplat's session. Or I met him at the LSO concert. I think the first time I met him, it was at the LSO concert, because back then the contractor of the LSO invited me, and they were doing Firebird by Stravinsky. And so great score to study, Stravinsky, Firebird, Petrushka, Rite of Spring. You just know these 3 scores, you can work in Hollywood. You don't need to study more. But you recopy them by hand, or on Dorico and Sibelius. So I met him there, and I remember the wife of Conrad, so Nantua, she said, "How did you spot my husband?" Out of all these 1,000 people in the crowd, I said, "Oh my God, well, I know him, I know his face, and I'm a fan." I said, "Oh, okay." So he was a little bit scared at the beginning. He said, "Oh, who is this geek?" But we really never talked. It was like, "Hello, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. I love your work." And the moment I really connected with Conrad, like I connected with Jeff, was at a workshop called the Hollywood Film Music Workshop, created by Dimitri Levici and Lilo Bellotto. They did, they are doing a great workshop there. And so Dimitri and Lilo invited Conrad to do a masterclass there. And I did the masterclass. I was free. I had no scores to orchestrate during the summer. So I'm going to go there. And I did some private lesson with him. And I think, and at that moment, we really connected together, intellectually and musically. Because before it was just like chit chat and so with them, after there was this intellectual background research when I was looking at their orchestration, then there was the human face-to-face meeting. Over the years, I learned a lot from them on different aspects, either the professional life or the personal life. On a professional level, I learned a lot in terms of how to unlearn everything I learned at the conservatoire, like all my cliche stuff that only works in books but not in real life. So I unlearned a lot of things with them, thanks to them. And regarding life as well, how to deal with sleep, time, pressure, how to deal with clients, how to deal with family life and things like this. So, and they are always been very nice to me. I consider them like friends, even more like family, like as both my uncles.
Very sweet. I was gonna say I actually attended the Hollywood Music Workshop in like 2014 when Conrad Pope was there, but I didn't take lessons with him. What a mistake! What a miss!
Well, this is kind of what I learned from Jean is if he seems really well connected, it's because he puts himself in that position. Like he really just he is a total nerd and just follows these people around and gets to know them and learn from them, and that's amazing. Like he at the Hollywood Workshop he'll have pestered Conrad for some private lessons and got them. Basically, I'd imagine. Yeah, and I mean he's also very lucky because Jeff and if you guys don't know of Jeff and Conrad, you should get on that. They're two of the top orchestrators in the world in film, and they're both as liberally as Jean-Stefan uses the word genius, they are both geniuses. So,
and they're also great educators, at least like Conrad Pope used to and still does a lot of like seminars, podcasts nowadays with COVID and all that. But he's a very active teacher. So, I mean.
Yeah, Jeff as well. I don't know Conrad, but I've met Jeff a couple of times. They're just lovely, lovely people. And as John said, certainly in what we think of as Hollywood, it can be a rare thing to find genuine people. And so, embracing them is a good idea.
What I was going to say is that, as you said, Sam, finding genuine people is seemingly very hard because at least what it appears from the outside is it's just busy people who don't have time for you. But I actually got a chance to meet Conrad in 2014 in LA when it was during the Desplat scoring session for Godzilla. And so I was in there with my friend Jules, who I was there to visit. And Conrad was there orchestrating. And during the breaks, he was spending his time talking to us, taking us through the score, letting us ask him any questions. Arguably when he should, be very stressed, he's doing this huge film, but he took the time in the middle of this huge project to just sit down and talk and communicate with us and ask us, because he knew that it would have been a valuable experience to have access to him as a fountain of knowledge. So it goes to show that I think, it never hurts to ask, to reach out to these people, because more often than not, the people at the very top, it might seem like it's a very cutthroat industry, but I often feel like the people at the very top are just the best at what they do. They never have to prove anything to anybody. And more often than not, they're very much open to sharing their knowledge if you're willing to reach out.
And I think it's really important. I mean, we get to talk about this later, but it's really important with orchestration. There's a danger of an amount of that art form being lost, I think, and it's these people that share that knowledge and enthusiasm, keep it infectious, that will keep that going, I think.
Yeah, I think that they're also sort of very like old Hollywood, if we would put it that way. They truly know their stuff, because I don't think it's because I mean the role of an orchestrator in the traditional sense has changed drastically from what it once was, and now you can do anything from just literally MIDI transcription to full-on orchestrating from piano score, right? And obviously, I think in interacting or consuming any interviews or podcasts or writings that these in particular two individuals put out, it goes to show that you have to know so much more than that, and you have to have as many tools in your tool chest as you possibly can. And they know their stuff, not just within the film sphere, but within the music sphere, not just within orchestral music, but outside of that as well. They're just very knowledgeable about music in general, and I think that's an important thing to take away.
Absolutely. And I think maybe we should move on to the next one where he's talking about...
Just before we do, can I just say, just a little recommendation for everyone. There's a Conrad Pope composed film called Tim's Vermeer, which is a brilliant little art history documentary with lovely music composed by Conrad Pope. It's one of my favorite films, actually. It's a lovely story. So Tim's Vermeer, if you're into it. Yeah.
He also did My Week with Marilyn, didn't he? The one about Marilyn Monroe.
He did.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're both Conrad and Jeff are amazing composers as well as orchestrators. And maybe if we go to the video that's being an orchestrator, not a composer. So yeah, I wanted to talk to Jehan about this because Jehan is a phenomenal composer and is very much an orchestrator now. You know, that's what he's known for, and I wanted to know why.
All right.
Basically.
I choose to do orchestration because I'm a huge fan of music from the point of view of a fan. So when I was a kid, I was looking at magazine of interviews, John Williams and even James Horner, all these guys. And I wanted to be in the studio. I wanted to meet these guys. I wanted to meet the musicians. I wanted to meet the copyists, the sound engineers. I wanted to meet all these professions. And so orchestration was a way to enter this world. And to answer the question why I'm not composing more, is that also that I have a good memory that forbids me to, when I write something, I can't say music by Jean Stefan because I know the list of all the people who is behind. So I think it's more like a way of there's an Arab proverb saying, when you have nothing to say, shut up. When you have nothing to say new, shut up. So I shut up. But in a way, orchestration and arranging is a way of composing that suits me in a way that I don't have a feeling to be a crook writing a melody that was already written 200 years ago. And so I feel comfortable doing arrangements or orchestration. So, and maybe the third point is that I have created a zone of how to say confiance, of a safety zone of trust with all my composer clients. But if I switch to composer, I will cut. There will be like an umbilical rope cut. So maybe as I have lots of respect for Philippe Rombi or Maurizio Malanini or all great people I'm working with, maybe I prevent myself from pushing me to be a composer. Maybe there is this three aspect. So this memory aspect, this relationship aspect, and also the first one, I forgot what I said because I'm tired, but
well, you know, you mentioned
I'm a fan. Voilà, I'm a fan. It was a way to enter the business, and it was cool.
Is there an element of you know, not to accuse you in any way, but of not wanting to deal with filmmakers? Is there any...
my God, yeah. The fourth point, yes, because I remember when I met Maurizio, I was doing some composing, and I had a project with five people, 5 great animators, 5 great directors, but they were young like me, and I had to deal with 5 different ways of thinking, and I said, "Oh my God!" And I have to say, I was a bit. I'm a simple person, so not lazy but simple, and I like things that go smooth. And I realized that orchestration, the music is validated, and I'm working from validated music and approved music. When I was composing, I was dealing with many revisions, version 5, version 6, and things like this. And voilà. So, see, in a way, if I compose music again, which I am, in fact, in between gigs, I'm always composing stuff. It will be with me as a producer. So maybe on my YouTube channel, I compose things like funny things, or like mostly when I compose things for the YouTube channel is for to do funny stuff. But as I am the producer of my YouTube channel, I can be okay with myself in terms of decisions of which cue should go where. But Yeah, I think it's an important subject. So let's say for your audience, being a composer, you have to be. I will quote Pete Anthony. Pete Anthony is a great orchestrator, colleague of Jehan and a conductor and orchestrator of lots of scores of James Newton Howard and Marco Beltrami, who was recording today at our studio. Yeah. He said, and I think it's very true, orchestration is 95% of music and 5% of non-music, like communication, bullshit stuff, or whatever. Composing for films, it's 95% of communications and 5% of music. It's exaggerated, but I understand this quote because from Pete Anthony, because you have to deal with so many people. Because
it's like it's that distinction, isn't it, between being an actual composer and being head of the music department.
Exactly.
They're two different things. And,
exactly. Yeah. And I think in a way Hans Zimmer is doing what was done in the 40s, 50s, in a way what he is like a head of the music department.
Very interesting.
Extremely interesting. I really do get what he says, and like the fourth point.
Avoiding filmmakers, you mean?
I had to ask.
That was a great question because yeah.
I felt like he was avoiding it, so I probed a little deeper on that one. But yeah, it's interesting that he had that bravery, actually, I think, to make that decision early on, really. Because he's still young.
He's really open about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it also depends on your sort of philosophical point of view, because I definitely get what he's saying, but for me, I find those questions about what musical idea works for you and for your film and for your point of view, I find those questions to be quite interesting. But if you don't find those questions interesting, I can understand how that would turn you off, or if all the extra musical stuff going on isn't enjoyable to you, I can totally understand not wanting to deal with it.
It definitely.
Well, that could actually be the most interesting part of the whole process, like the research you do before a film, the discussions you have with the producers and the filmmakers. I find that to be one of the most interesting part of the process.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's definitely. I mean, we talked a little bit about how temperaments seem to differ between career orchestrators and career composers, and there's a definite. I mean, obviously, it's massively pigeonholing, but orchestrators do tend to be kind of a little bit more, meticulous and just a different mindset to their music, and John said like the way he said it was Pete Anthony, wasn't it, who quoted saying I think those percentages were quite skewed, but he's got a point that certainly when you're head of department as a composer, there's a lot of that communication to deal with that sometimes swamps the musical aspect, and I think that's maybe what he was getting at, is that he wanted it in its purest form to be dealing with music, and the fact that he said it was already validated, already approved by the filmmakers, meant that he just had to worry about the music, and there is something kind of nice about that.
In a way, I think that it's also it's not just that when you're a composer is more about communication than music. I think surely music is a part of it, but is limited. I think like basically in the big pot, in the big category of communication also falls the narrative part of it. Because like thinking of all the narrative aspect of music and like what angle do you want your music to take, and to what you want to convey, blah, blah, blah. That's almost like meta musical. I don't know if this is a correct word, but like I think orchestration is 90% or 95% based on music, as in it's just pure music. You're not thinking anymore of all like the extra content and I don't know, it's kind of like liberating in a way. Although, I mean, I love the part of like communicating with directors and, you know, finding the right angle and trying different versions, different approaches, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's like if you're a person who is deeply in love with just pure orchestral music as it is, or just like dealing with just the notes sort of aspect of it, I think, yeah.
There's something reassuring about orchestrating a cue and knowing like what you need to do and you know when it's done versus writing a cue and you're like, well, I might have to delete the whole thing. Who knows? I mean, it could be completely wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just on what V was saying, what I think what John's getting at as well, because after many conversations with John, it's quite clear that he's essentially a savant for just knowing music. His physical music library is extensive, but it's all also in his head. And so I can kind of get what he's saying about there's a constant gremlin on his shoulders of kind of plagiarism and being like, none of this is new, so what's the point? And you know, it's kind of sad in a way. I feel bad for him because he is a very good composer, but like I can see why he would choose orchestration in that sense, because that he's liberated of that fear, and it's just about making it sound as good as possible.
Well, and, I kind of respectfully disagree with that point. Just from the point of view is like to use an analogy, just because you use the exact same English words as another poet doesn't mean you can't write a new poem. I mean, like 66% of two completely separate books are like, I don't know the exact number, I'd pull that out of thin air, but are like the same 20 words. Like the word "the" is about 7% of all things that have ever been written. But that doesn't mean it's not. Anyway, it's a much bigger subject.
I completely agree with you, Shane. I'm just, I guess, from the point of view of John, if like every time he touches the keyboard to write something new, he feels that weight. I don't know.
I guess it depends on it depends on what sort of degree of originality you're looking for, and maybe he's looking for that sort of pure form of originality, which we know is sort of impossible because by nature of writing, you're using harmonic structures, instruments, notation that's been developed by people before, so there's going to be some crossover. And I also guess it depends on the degree to which you're able to recognize similarities between what you're doing and something else, which is, I think it's probably both of those things that come together and almost create sort of a paralyzing fear of doing something that's too similar to something that's already been done.
Yeah, and also maybe he knows too many scores. Should have studied less.
Yeah, he studied too much. That's what it is. Shane, let's do
nowadays there's plenty of tools, of libraries and stuff that can supply to your lack of.
It's all about the MIDI packs. About the MIDI packs.
Oh, don't get me started.
Let's quickly play another video.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of mental health, let's go on to the about mental health. Number 5, Shane. I was just kind of relevant to our stream as well. Because what we want is that sense of community. So I was asking him like how important that is to him, and you know, getting him to open up about mental health was the next one.
Great, here we go.
So we have to be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and to have this Janus way of I am person A, the brain guy, the guy with great social skills, doing business, doing entrepreneur thing, and dealing with all these people, and then this creative, artistic part of you, and it's very hard because in the middle you have to be as well a man, like a husband or a wife or a father or a mother. So this is the aspect that is, I think, never covered in our profession. Is also the back side of our profession is how to deal with love, with a girlfriend, wife, whatever, family, because they don't understand what we are doing. We're doing like a crazy job, but maybe like 0.0000% people are doing in the world. So it's very, very limited. There's not a lot of people doing it. And so there's no reference. And so you have also to learn how to be organized how to organize, and I'm still learning it, but how to organize your sleep, how to organize your health in terms of doing sports and eating healthy, and how also to keep communicating with others, either you're from the work or from your family or loved ones. So it's life. It's all my jobs. I got them through human interaction, face to face. Nobody contacted me on my Facebook. Nobody contacted me after I sent an email. Nobody contacted me because of my IMDb or because of a YouTube channel or whatever. Face-to-face contact, human contact. So yeah, so I would say to your audience, after the pandemic, go to concerts, go to festivals, go to when you're in a recording studio, hang out, just talk to people, and because in the end it's a family. It's a family. So in every family, there's always like blah blah blah, like gossips, or but you might meet some nice people, and in a way, we're capable to attract people that are like us. So the more people you meet, the more likely you will meet people that you will actually work with, because there's positive energy and things like this.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because really, that's why we started this stream, is to have some kind of community for composers to have that connection, because it especially with composition, we've already mentioned the ego and the temptation to compete at all times.
Yeah.
And actually it's so much more important to understand what everyone else is going through, and help each other through it, because it isn't, we're not saving lives, but a difficult career to choose.
Each time there's a moment of panic, we always joke like this. We say, we are not saving life, we are not pressing the atomic bomb button, or putting a rocket in space, or
we're eating pan au chocolat and checking tempo maps.
And by the way, I would mention this as well. Sometimes I feel down, like I feel not depressed, but down, because I have an illusion that I am useless. Either useless because the samples are replacing the orchestra, or because my job is to entertain people. And I have a feeling that I'm not saving lives. I'm not a doctor, but whenever you feel that, and when you talk with people that are not musicians, it's great, because they tell you, wow, it's great, you're doing music for films, and they watch the show, they watch the films. And actually these young people, I remember a friend of mine, I will not mention his name, but he got cancer, and I was so sad. I cried for maybe 2 or 3 days, because I said, I'm so useless. I should have been a doctor to heal my friend. And in a way, people who got cancer, or got to the hospital, or either they're going to die, or they're going to survive, but they are dealing with this, they love music. They love music, they love film, they love TV series. So in a way, whenever you feel down, remember that people are actually watching what you're doing, and they're enjoying it. Or little kids are watching like Asterix, or watching, and they want to become composer as well. So
that was a really great segment.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for his honesty there.
I'm going to be honest about that last section is something that I think about frequently. I don't know if you guys do as well, but about the sort of necessity of what we do, because it seems so important inside the little microcosm that we are. But contextualized with everything going on in the world, it doesn't seem that important, and sometimes it can almost feel indulgent in a way. But as he said, these are the things that are helping people through these circumstances. And I had to pull up, there's a quote from the Dead Poets Society that I always think of whenever I get down. And so I'll read this quote real quick. We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. And medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. And so I always think about that in relation to music as well, in relation to what we're doing. It tends to sort of help pull out of that existential spiral every once in a while. I think it's comforting to know that this is sort of a universal thought that he also struggles with. And I think it's something that we have to understand, that if you are struggling with, it's probably going to continue, but you find ways to deal with it. And it's okay to have these struggles. And it's great to be able to talk about them as openly as he did.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I mean, I cut out a slightly unnecessary quote from me as well, from Winston Churchill, that says pretty much the same thing, Michael, that, it's just an integral part of life, and being able to contribute to that is what should get us through it. And yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'm really grateful for Jean's honesty there, because I think we all kind of feel it a little bit. And yeah, as someone who applied to be a doctor and didn't get in, I definitely feel it. So yeah. Anyway,
Well, also,
sorry.
You're not getting in. Go be useless.
Well, I also particularly like what he said about, because we're in the age of self-promotion, aren't we? It's all about, pushing yourself onto people that probably don't really want to hear, what you got. So it is, at the end of the day, all about those personal relationships, because that's how it is when you're working with filmmakers, with other musicians. It's a relationship. It's not sending somebody your demo reel and expecting work from it. Of course, that's, I guess, some people get work that way, but at the end of the day, those face-to-face interactions, and not predatory interactions as well, when you're just going in with a motive of trying to get a job, but just fostering actual legitimate relationships. As he said, when you're in the studio, just talking to people, just becoming friends, because everybody, as he said, was also just in this big family together. So legitimizing actual relationships is, I think, a very important thing, particularly in this age where everything is just so seemingly 2D, right? Yeah. Online, very lacking depth.
Yeah, be a real person to the people you want to work with. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. I think we've got time for one more, Shane, if that's all right. Should we? Sure. I suppose we should probably do the top tips thing, top career lessons.
It's what everyone's here for. No, I'm just joking.
Let's do that one.
Okay, let me just set it up. Any intro to this one? Just basically, what are your top tips?
Yeah, I just asked him, what lessons can you give us that you've learned through your career, basically.
Okay, great. Here we go.
I would say the most difficult thing is to deal with sleep, because there's a lot of last minute things. So the things I try to learn is to try to organize myself to actually have at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep per day. And for some moments, I try to discipline myself to go to bed early and to wake up early. Because I'm a fan of James Horner, and he used to wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So for 3 or 4 months, I tried to do that. I don't know if my wife is listening, because she will laugh because it didn't last a lot. It didn't. So I'm more like a night person. For the first reason is because I like to be alone to focus, because I'm a very easily distracted person, because I love to laugh, I love to communicate, I love to. So, and you know that because we're working together sometimes in the same room for hours and hours. But the difficult experience I had besides sleep is how to deal with time pressure. And over the years, I learned how to be very precise and to follow a protocol, as you said, the keyword. It's a protocol of way of doing things that I can do or you can do, to that when a cue arrives, we know we have to do this, and this. And when there's a project, the project is already ready with all the folders and subfolders and the Dropbox synchronization and things like this. So I would say sleep, organization, and the things I learned, I think I answered it already before, is to unlearn what I learned at the conservatoire and to really learn from the pros, like, I mean, from the players. Today we had a session at their studio with Carmine Lori, which is like concertmaster of the London Symphony Orchestra. So you learn a lot from these kind of guys in terms of bowing, in terms of notation. Visually, I learned a lot how to notate things in a way that it is very efficient during the recording session to save time, so to save money. So I learned a lot of that from the players, from the pro orchestrators like Conrad Pope, Jehan, from my clients. So I learned that. So notation, sleep, organization. And the other thing, also to have, what I learned is to learn to say no. This was very hard to say no, because as a musician, we are struggling to buy salad or food or whatever. So at the beginning of my career, I was saying yes to everything. And then I kind of did like, not a burnout, but I was like going to hospital. I was not well at all. From this moment onwards, I said, okay, maybe I should learn to say no, even if I love a person, even if I love a project. As you said earlier, life is a gift, life is precious. So it's better to say no and to feel better, and then to do more projects than to say yes to everything. And then at the end you die having the biggest IMDb of the world, but you died at younger than Mozart. So I would say, yeah, learning to say no was a big thing for me, because I'm a perfectionist. I'm kind of monomaniac, so it's hard for me to say no, because I love challenges, and but saying no is a way as well to respect yourself and to respect your client, because if you say yes and you do shit, it's not good. So, and we mentioned the book On the Track, so buy the book.
Have you got it?
Yeah, I've got it. There's a page you need to learn. You just need to learn one page. Where is it? But page, when you have read the preface by John Webbs, go to page 333, and it is called Practical Considerations, Keeping Healthy. And I don't know why they put this there. It should be put even there on the cover and on the back, and even on the keeping healthy. I won't mention names because I'm fat, but when you look at the IMDb and the photos of the composer, they all became fat because we are walking all the day on our Herman Miller chair, and not doing a lot of sport, and so keeping healthy is very important. Keeping
healthy. That's good.
Wise words.
I'm not working enough, guys.
No.
I'm skinny as fuck.
You must be a horrible composer then.
I must be, yeah.
Just trying to hide my Herman Miller chair.
I was about to say,
with my folds of fat. Yeah, I mean, yeah, wise words. I would heed them if I were you. Keeping healthy. We like that on this channel, don't we?
Well, there's also, I think that there's this idea that you have to sort of work yourself to death, don't you? You know, especially nowadays, or that, you know, if you're not working as hard as you can, then there's a potential that somebody else can come in and swoop in and take that job away from you. But at the same time, you know, taking care of yourself both mentally and emotionally and physically is important for longevity at the end, right?
Yeah.
And it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And one cheeky pearl that he snuck in there is On the Track, which we have mentioned before, but it is the absolute gospel. For those that don't know it, please buy that book now.
It's here on my left somewhere. When he mentioned it, I was looking like to see if I could take it out, just like come back in the live stream.
I edited out like 3 minutes of him looking for this page. He was like, it's page 333. I know it is. And then he found it. It's like, it's page 333.
Oh, you should have done a time lapse.
I'm not capable of that. It was a dissolve fade, if anything. I think we've basically run out of time, guys. So just to reiterate, there's more. There's a lot more. It's an hour and a half, and that's kind of scratched the surface. So please do consider watching the full thing. We'll upload it. We'll get rid of the rough edges, but we'll put up the whole thing. And please do listen to that. He talks a little bit about the future of orchestration and where that's going, and that's very interesting as well. So yeah, lovely bloke. Jehan, thank you so much. I don't know if you caught the stream tonight, but thank you so much for doing that. I think everyone appreciates your honesty, your frankness, and sharing your experiences. You're the man. What a hero.
Yeah, I think he's I haven't met him, but he seems like an absolutely lovely person, and I think his enthusiasm for music is quite infectious. Like after listening to him talk, I'm like, oh, I want to study a score, and it's
yeah,
great.
It really is.
He has a very, very luminous energy. Like that's amazing. And I think this really is an industry that can turn you into a bit of a shark, or pardon my French, a little bit of a dick. And he is the exact opposite of that. He seems like one of the loveliest person on earth, and it's just like so cool to see that there are people who survive in this industry and then can still be lovely human beings.
Yeah, I mean, and look out for his name, everyone, because if you don't know him now, you will. He's going to be a big orchestrator. Very, very talented guy.
All right. Well, before we wrap up for this evening, sorry that it wasn't too much of a discussion with the comments tonight, but I think it's a different kind of format where we're trying out with these interviews, and I think there's a lot to be learned from other perspectives. We're going to do another similar sort of thing next week with a mixing engineer. I believe I have that information correct. So please do join us again for that. I think it's going to be really awesome. I need many more tips to improve my mixing. I was saying the other day, I was working on this library track, and I sent it to a friend of mine. He's like, dude, it sounds amazing. How did you do that? And I was like, I don't know. It was dumb luck. I don't know why it sounds good. It doesn't always sound good. This one did. We have Jehan in the comments saying,
oh, Jehan.
Oh,
very funny. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that interview. That was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Jehan. See you tomorrow.
8 a.m. sharp, Sam.
You should be orchestrating, Jehan. You should be orchestrating.
All right, well, shall we leave it there for this evening?
Let's leave it there.
Yes, I just want to, before we end it, even if just to reprise what you were saying, Shane, even if the chat hasn't been super, super active tonight because we're all tuning in to listen to all these beautiful and very useful tips that Jehan had for us, feel free, guys, as always, to comment, and especially since I know that like mixing is, I think for all of us, a bit of a like this kind of mysterious world where this can happen. Like you mix something and it sounds great, and it's like, oh my god, how did I do this?
You gotta sacrifice a goat.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Mixing gods.
But yeah, feel free to always comment on the chat and to keep the discussion going, because that's also what we.
Oh, and also thanks to Dan. I didn't know he was watching. Hybrid 2 is Daniel James, great composer that I did some assisting work for many years ago. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Oh, nice.
He also streams on Twitch. Great channel if you want to see some live composition. He's awesome.
Cool.
Hi, Dan.
Amazing.
All right, everyone. See you next week.
Good night, guys.
See you then.